I'd like to welcome Amy Stephens. Everyone knows Amy, and we appreciate and value her expertise and time. Many of you have sent her questions either through Instagram or via email, and she is so kind to answer those. And she answers them very, very quickly and thoroughly. And we appreciate your expertise and time. And take it away from here. This is so.
So hi, everyone. So I'm going to try and get my slides up really quick. And I didn't prepare a formal talk. I just kind of listed all of your questions as they came in and put them on slides. So that's what I'm going to be sharing. Just give me 1 second. I usually do it in Zoom. So it's just navigating this. Let's get that on. And then if you have additional questions, you can either email those to me or so you could either email those afterwards, or you can message me separately, or you can get it to me anyway. And Instagram is great. I check that. However you want to get to me, any additional questions. Can you guys see my screen? No?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to get started. Okay, so again, it's questions that I just kind of pulled the questions. I didn't put the name of the person who asked, just to protect any kind of confidentiality if there was any. But so if there are any errors on here, I apologize. I didn't thoroughly proofread it. I made this maybe 2 hours ago. So I'm going to get started. I'm just going to dive right in. So how much to eat when running a lot of miles and you're feeling tired, or maybe you're not sure that you're eating enough? That was the question that was asked. And I think this is a great question and a great place to start, because many of us are really peaking with our training right now. So we are feeling exhausted and tired and hungry. So I think how to know how much to eat, it's really it's unique to you. If you feel tired, or you feel maybe you're irritable when you're underfueled or hangry, everyone experiences hunger or underfueling differently. So maybe take note in how you feel, and you kind of can check in with yourself. And I always just kind of tell clients fuel up and refuel. That means there's no skipping post-workout snacks or meals. If work is delaying you a lunch, or you can't eat lunch on time, then make sure you get in a little bit more a little later on. And again, it is unique to each individual. I know that for myself, I ran the most miles I've ever run this past week. And how it affected me is I was always eating. I carried bars with me. And sometimes I wasn't hungry, but for me, I just felt tired, or I couldn't concentrate. And then if I ate something, I felt a lot better. So, there's no real formula and number of grams of carb to have. I think that's too hard to chase that kind of information. I think it's just about eating frequently. So recovering with 15 to 30 grams of carbohydrate is always a safe bet, or even more. That means immediately after the run, and then having a proper meal later on, and 20 to 30 grams of protein. That's right after, within 1 to 2 hours. And then a little bit later on, having a proper meal, whether it's a morning run, then doing a lunch, or going into a late breakfast. And I think, again, this goes towards following a meal plan. Know what your body needs. If you're a morning runner, you have to have a solid lunch and snack right after, because that's when your body is recovering and repairing the most from that workout or that run. If you're running at night, on the Wednesday nights, if you're running with the group, breakfast is your best meal. That's your recovery meal. Even though it seems like dinner might be, your body's really recovering through the night, and you're going to be hungrier at breakfast. So you can't run out the door and get to work. You need to kind of prep that the night before. Could even be something really simple, like a peanut butter sandwich. Just no skipping that meal. Okay, caffeine. I was asked this question by several different people. So how to use caffeine for performance. So caffeine is awesome because it has been studied, and the studies have really established some decent criteria for use. It reduces the perception of pain and fatigue, mobilizes fat to use for energy, and it spares glycogen. So what that means is during a race, your body is going to rely a little bit more on the fat and hold on to that glycogen, which is super valuable, which will prevent you from hitting the wall. So having caffeine can help you do that. It also increases alertness, reaction time, and mood. So it can make you feel pretty good. The dosage. So this is, where I can help you. So it's 2 to 6 milligrams per kilogram. So you convert your weight, like if you're a 150 pound person, you put that into kilos, and then it's about 2 to 6 milligrams. So that's a big range. I would say, like, if you are a coffee drinker, you kind of, that is equivalent to like 2 to 3 cups of coffee, but that's like a real cup. Like the Starbucks talls is like 1.5. So you're pretty close to the range of how much you need before a race to use it for performance. Also, it peaks at 1 hour. So, you don't want to take it like too early, but I think, having it with a breakfast, like if, usually you're having it at home and then you're traveling to your race, it's totally fine to use it under those circumstances, because it also helps with elimination of your GI tract, which is great. So I think, this guideline of 2 to 400 for someone who's like 150 pound, that is also helpful if you're planning to use it during the race. So you can do 1 cup of coffee before and then doing a few goos and looking at the labels to see how much is in those. Some goos might have anywhere from 25, I've seen, to 100 milligrams of caffeine. So I wouldn't do the 100 every single goo, because that can be a lot. And you might start to feel jittery, or might actually mess with your GI tract. So that might not work to your benefit. So hopefully that answers that question of how much to take. And I definitely think, it's a great, easy way to improve performance. So how to eat the day before the race. So if this is designed for like a half marathon, so this is for Sunday, if you're racing the NYC half, Thursday to Saturday is when you're kind of carb loading. If you were doing a full marathon, you would do it over an entire week. Carb loading before a marathon can improve performance by like 3%. So you don't want to miss out. And that could be the 2 minutes that you're trying to use to qualify for Boston. That can help you with that small amount of time that you're trying to accomplish your goal. So half marathon, half the amount of time that you have to carb load. So starting on Thursday, gradually increasing the amount of carbohydrates at your meal. So pushing in more carbs. It doesn't mean you have to start eating bagels 3 times a day, because if you rapidly change your diet, you can also get like very severely constipated. I've seen that before, and it's really uncomfortable. So you're gradually increasing the amount of carbohydrates, and it's like if you're doing a sweet green salad for lunch, maybe you're going to do a grain bowl with just a little bit of greens on it, because you don't want to have too many greens. We need to start increasing those carbohydrates. So half of the plate is a good way to look at it as well. Like I put a plate on the side here. Don't forget to have fluids as well. You want to have an increased amount of water or any type of hydration beverage that you like, and really low fat, low fiber. Very important. I think as you get closer, like Saturday especially, you're going to do more carbohydrates, and that plate is going to look a slightly bit different. It's going to be like 3/4 of the plate is going to be the carbohydrate, and then a little bit of a vegetable and some protein. So that's on Saturday. So a dinner Saturday night can look like a bowl of rice or this grilled chicken with some rice. And it would be foods that you've had before that your body is used to. Like if you have guests visiting and for whatever reason you decide not to cook and you have to order in, just be mindful of the fats in foods. That's where you can run into some serious trouble by changing your diet too abruptly and then having too much fat. If you have too much fat, it's going to push out some of the carbohydrates, and fat does not help you to run faster. The carbs are what will help you. So you want to leave room in your diet for those carbohydrates. Here's some other questions. I just kind of put this up on the slide. My questions revolve around meal plans, foods for optimal training and race day, struggle with proper fueling as a runner. So that I kind of addressed, and race day fueling, I'm going to go over that a little bit more later on. I'm going to go to the next question here. Should you drink alcohol while training? So alcohol interferes with recovery. It literally cuts in front of all of the other food inside your body, and it gets digested first. So those carbs are just kind of lingering around and don't get digested and don't get used properly for refueling and restocking glycogen. So it can delay recovery. Is it bad for you? No. I mean, if you want to have a beer or a couple drinks with your friends after or to celebrate a race or a long run, I think knowing that it's not helping you, it's not really harming you. And if you have significant goals and you're going to run the next day, then maybe that's not going to be ideal for you. And too much alcohol can definitely be harmful to your training. And again, because it's pushing out calories, it's pushing out carbohydrate rich or like nutrient rich foods for alcohol calories. Doesn't negatively impact your training. It interferes with sleep as well. So ideal meal plan before a medium to long run, 45 minutes to more than 90, and afterwards. Okay, so under 45 or like under 1 hour, you can run fasted or work out fasted. You do not need to worry about food. If you're working out more than like 70 minutes or running more than 70 minutes, then you would probably benefit from some carbohydrate beforehand. Generally, the rule of thumb is like 1 gram of carb per kilogram. So like a 120-pound person is about, I think it's 45 kilos. It was at 54 kilos. So 54 kilos. So it's like 50 grams of carbohydrate, which is like a bagel 1 hour before a 1 hour run. So, or more than 1 hour. So like for the half marathon, if you're doing like, 90 minutes or a little more, yeah, you're probably going to eat something 2 hours before. So you're looking at like 100 grams of carbohydrate around there. And that can be from food and liquids. So if you're drinking a Gatorade bottle, that could be like 30 grams. And then maybe a bagel with that, or half a bagel and a banana. So then you can get to those numbers. I try not to focus so much on the number, more on the food and getting a sense of like portion sizes, like which is what you had asked in this question. So hopefully I address that, and I can go into that in more detail and like send something to Coach to pass out to you guys. So what foods or meal plans do you recommend that gives bigger body runners energy without feeling heavy? Yeah, that's a great question. So regardless of your body size, you still need a similar amount of carbohydrate when you run. So you don't want to cut carbs thinking that's going to help you to change your weight or quote unquote feel lighter. You still want to have those carbs. So I would say maybe cutting back a little bit on the fat. Like the fat is not going to help you to run faster. So instead of like eliminating all fat from your diet, I would say to cook meals at home more often. And then you can kind of regulate your fat intake a little bit better and choose leaner proteins. So like chicken, fish, turkey. And if you want more guidance on that, I can definitely talk with you about how to kind of gauge that and see where we can find some other strategies or other places to improve the diet. And going back to that one more time, like you don't want to be cutting carbs or, one of the hardest things is trying to cut or drop weight while you're training because you could lose valuable glycogen from your body. And that is not what we want to do. We want to hold on to that glycogen, and glycogen will get depleted if your body feels that it is being starved. So it's like you want your body to feel that it's getting enough food. And I would probably reduce the calories, like I'd estimate calories and reduce it by like 300 to 400 very gradually, just to allow the body to know like food's coming and to burn fat for energy. Carbohydrates, which foods should a runner include while training? So carbs, include lots of carbs. I feel like I'm always, a lot of times runners or just athletes try to cut carbs because they hear that carbs are not good for you. But for runners, carbs are your major source of energy. So it doesn't mean to eat donuts all day, but healthy carbs like rice, quinoa, potatoes, starchy vegetables, fruits. Those are some examples of really great carbohydrates, oatmeal, whole grain breads. So carbs come in many different forms. I think, if you choose them wisely, you can absolutely include them in a healthy diet. Plus, if you cut out carbs, like your body can feel really hungry and depleted. So it becomes imbalanced. Also, a healthy diet to include, or foods to include, like lean proteins. So chicken, fish, turkey, eggs, tofu, those are high quality proteins that will help your body build muscle. So, and they can promote recovery. So those are really great foods to have. And low fat dairy, I think, is one of my favorite foods for athletes, especially females, if to get enough calcium, and there's protein, and it's probiotic. So there's a lot of great things, and it's easy to get. Most stores have a lot of variety of different yogurts. Healthy fats, I think, are great, like avocado, nuts, seeds, olive oil. Those are awesome to have in the diet. So the only foods, like, I don't really say to avoid foods. I think that can be, if someone feels they're being restricted, it's like those are the only foods that they're going to want. So it's not about restricting. It's just like maybe have it less often. And I bet these foods don't make you feel amazing, when, before a run. Fatty meals, too much protein and not enough carbs. Like I had one athlete, a male athlete, who was trying to change his body composition, and I went through a diet recall, and he was eating like 16 ounces of protein with dinner because like a trainer at his gym told him that was the best way to get leaner. And that is probably one of the worst pieces of advice that he could have had, because he had no energy and his runs were terrible, and it interrupted his sleep. So once we balanced out his diet a little bit more, he felt so much better, and his runs are awesome now. So this is also a great topic, carb loading versus training low. So people talk about carb loading before marathon day, but I heard about research comparing lean protein diet before marathon versus carb loading. So to me, it's, and what is the best way to preparing the body and a nutrition from month out before marathon. So first, I'm just going to address the carb loading versus training low. So training low is when you completely cut out carbohydrates, and you do that for a short period of time. It could be like 2 weeks, and then reintroduce carbohydrates, and your body can store higher amounts of glycogen. So this theory has been tested, and yes, it does show that it can increase the amount of glycogen stored. However, it is strict. Like, you cannot, it's like basically you're shifting gears abruptly. You're eating a normal runner's diet, and then you completely eliminate all the carbohydrates, and your diet consists of chicken, avocado, cheese, like completely different foods, and you're still running, and you're still trying to perform, and you're feeling really lousy. So, and then one of the issues, I talked to one of the researchers at Scratch, who does a lot of this type of research, and they found that runners were just getting sick because they were not eating a variety of foods. There was no fruits, very limited carbohydrates, and it's like really not a nutritious type of way to eat. I don't think like any of the Kenyans are doing that. I mean, they don't do things like that with their diet. And if you're vegan or vegetarian, this diet plan probably won't work. I was talking to one of my 2:15 marathoners, and he's a vegetarian, and I said, let's try this. He's like, heck no, because it would be basically you'd eat avocado for breakfast, or like 3 avocados for breakfast, and like just tons of like nuts and olive oil on bread. I mean, no, not on bread, but just plain olive oil to get in the calories, and it's not ideal. So it can be effective, and if you wanted to try that, I'd be open to helping, but I think it would be really hard. Best foods for recovery. Also curious about the best diet for muscle and body recovery on the evening of a marathon day and the week after. So recovery foods, this has definitely been tested, and basically they have 2 different groups of people, and they'll give them tart cherry juice, and they'll say, okay, how do you feel after drinking that? And then they switch the groups, and they give one group water and the other group gets the tart cherry juice, and they can measure if that was really, the beverage that helped improve their symptoms after the race or after a workout. And they found that there was definitely a reduction in, I think they looked at their swelling, as a lot of it is done on knees, swelling in the knees, and just tart cherry juice is a great food to include after a run, and it's easy and it tastes really good. If you don't have an appetite after a workout, cold drinks can be really great. Chocolate milk, I think, is also really great. Not everybody loves drinking milk or chocolate milk, but that's a great food because it combines a lot of the different nutrients into one easily drinkable form, and it tastes pretty good. Healthy fats are also great for recovery because they reduce inflammation. So things like avocados, olive oil, salmon is great. There's also mackerel, anchovies. Those are also really high in omega-3s. So those can definitely help also reduce some inflammation caused by an intense workout or race. Low-fat yogurt is also probiotic. That can be very helpful too. So those are great. And really after a run or a workout, the best recovery foods are a combination of carbohydrates and proteins. And I think I go into that in one of these other slides here. And I'll circle back if I don't address that. How to handle carb cravings. This is also another question I get a lot. Why do I always crave a burger after a hard speed workout or a long run? It could be a burger or just any type of food. This athlete craved burgers. Can I safely eat 2 burgers per week without it affecting my cholesterol? I need breakfast ideas, and I'll get to that one too. And why do I crave carbs all day long? So craving foods usually means that you did not eat enough at the meal before. So if you are nourished and you eat a balanced meal, you won't think about food. You'll have a break and you can do other things like work or relax, do other activities without constantly thinking about food. So if food is always on your mind, oftentimes, not always, it means that you're not eating enough. So I would check back in with yourself and look back at that prior meal and earlier in the day, like, was there enough food consumed? Like, when are these cravings happening? Is it always the same time of day? You can also check in with it being, to determine if it's emotional or if it's truly a calorie deficit or needing more food. Like, look back at your foods. Like, if you ran in the morning and had a snack and now it's like 2 o'clock and you had a salad for lunch, that's not enough food. It's more than halfway through the day and you haven't even taken in like a quarter of your calories. So having a more substantial lunch, or maybe it's a dinner, more balanced dinner, can be helpful. And having a couple burgers a week is totally fine. Red meat is high in iron. As long as it's not always with French fries or like the portion isn't too big, maybe it's homemade and it's a leaner meat. Like, there are ways to make it very nutritious and part of your healthy meal plan. So affecting cholesterol, if it is affecting, if you do have high cholesterol, then maybe you want to really limit it. Maybe look at your diet in other ways, like maybe there's ice cream that you're having that you could swap out for something else and you can keep the burger. So like, how many other foods, you want to look at the context that we're talking about. Are there other foods in there that you can kind of change, or maybe even add in more fish into the diet to kind of neutralize? I'm always a fan of people eating foods that they love, and not too much of, the fried or the dessert or the less nutritious foods, but they're definitely a part of a healthy meal plan. Including them in your diet. And then if it's emotional, like the way to determine if it's emotional, you can look back and evaluate if you had enough food at the prior meals. And you can also be honest with yourself and say, what's going on in my head? Like, am I feeling stressed? What was I thinking about before I had this craving? Like, I had one client who would always crave afternoon sweets. And it turned out that she'd have this work meeting that she did not love attending, and it was always at 2 o'clock. And she would always find herself distracted or making herself making this meeting go by a little faster by eating a donut. So instead of eating food, like, we need to deal with our stress or our boredom in other ways. So addressing it, and she stopped eating that food in the afternoon, and she was like, wow, I was just totally frustrated and it had nothing to do with being hungry. And now I don't think about that food anymore. And if I want it, I have it as a dessert. So, just kind of addressing that. So protein powders, I know I'm going all over the place. I'm just trying to address all the questions. So what to look for. So this is a big topic because it's so popular right now. Like, where did protein powders come from? Like, where was this deficit in our diet? Why do we need this? I think it can be a very convenient way to get in extra protein. If you are a big meat eater and you eat cheese and you eat all different types of meats, you don't necessarily need a protein powder. But it is a quick, easy source of protein. I could tell you how I would use it, but let's keep going on. How often should you be adding it to smoothies? So adding it to a smoothie, if you're putting in yogurt or some type of milk, you don't really need it. You really need like around 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal. And one of those scoops can easily be 20 grams or 10 to 20 grams. So if you're getting in a milk in your smoothie and maybe like peanut butter in there, you're probably getting close to like 15. So do you really need it? Maybe you do half a scoop. You don't have to have it, but if you feel good after and it maybe keeps you full for longer, I don't have anything against it at all. And more protein is not going to build more muscle. The way to build muscle and to recover is to eat some food and eat a combination of carbs and protein after the workout. And then the studies show that the best way to build muscle is to eat high quality proteins throughout the day. So eating one big amount of protein at once is not nearly as good as eating like 3 meals worth of protein throughout the day. So if you find it's really hard to get that protein in the morning because you're busy or even after a workout and it's your easiest, tastiest option, then that's totally appropriate and fine. So the ingredients I would look for in a protein powder, I would look at the protein source, like where is it coming from? Whey is the number one highest quality because it has all the essential amino acids, and that's the kind that comes from milk. Soy is also really great. And if you're a vegetarian or you're vegan and you don't want to have any dairy or animal products at all, then pea protein would be an appropriate source. Things I would look for like sugar alcohols, and they're buried in the labels. It's anything with an OL. Any word that ends in OL is a sugar alcohol. And the issue with that is it can cause GI issues. I had one athlete who was using that a lot. And once we removed that from the diet, the GI issues resolved. It was really amazing. Some people are more sensitive to than others. So you just kind of have to play around with what works for you. Also, this is another big thing is look for the caffeine. Anything that says a pre-workout or pre is caffeine. And anything that says energizing or full of energy is a caffeinated food. And too much caffeine can cause jitteriness or insomnia. The brands that I like the Naked brand, like Naked Pea, Naked Whey. There's plenty of other brands. If you want me to look at the type that you're having, you can send it to me. I'm happy to take a look. There's plenty that are totally decent and healthy. So here are these breakfast ideas that are not toast with peanut butter. Totally get that. I would agree on most days too. The one thing I would say about toast with peanut butter is it works. Like if that's something that you normally have, that your body feels good with it. Like you don't want to try too many things because it can lead to GI issues, or it could be a smaller amount of carbohydrate and your body like doesn't realize it until you're mile 6 or 7 in a race and you're like, wow, that was not as much as I normally have. So stick with what does work. You could try experiment with these other foods to see if they're better options for you. I like low-fat granola bars like Clif, RX Bar, Nature Valley, Nutri-Grain. So these are definitely not healthy. Clif is actually pretty good, but the purpose of them is to get digested quickly, so you can get the food out of your gut and allow your body to shift all of the blood supply to your working muscles. And that will help you to exercise, be energized, and not have GI issues. Fresh or dried fruit is great. Bananas, apples, orange, or other fresh fruit, dried mango, raisins, dates. Those are all really great. Flavored low-fat yogurt. Some people cannot tolerate dairy before a workout. Some people do great. Fruit smoothies. So here I would not use a lot of milk before a workout because it would delay the digestion and that can stay in you a little longer. Bagel or waffle with a little bit of PB&J. So instead of just plain toast, maybe change up the bread source. I really like these Eggo waffles. They're really pretty processed, but they go down easily. They taste pretty good. I get the cinnamon ones sometimes, and I'll eat it even if I'm not hungry. Graham crackers, saltines, or wheat thins are also great. And you could just do drinks too, like Gatorade or some type of sports drink, if that seems more appealing to you. And I think actually that is the last slide. I just blew through those. I'm going to stop sharing. So you guys were very quiet. Did I go through that too quickly? Was that helpful?
It was very helpful.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a good pace and stuff, and we also have a recording in case anyone wants to go over. But I think the pace was good.
Amy, I just had a quick question. It's Karim. The suggestions were good. I mean, were great. Obviously, I mean, you and I spoke, I don't know, a few months back. But is this for all weather conditions? These suggestions, or how would that change how we approach a run in cold versus warmer weather?
Yeah, so if it's a warmer race, you're definitely going to be using more hydration for sure. And you will have to add some electrolytes. And, you know, depending on what you've practiced in, and hopefully you have some opportunity to train in the conditions that you're going to race. Hydration is different. And I don't think you have to change your pre-run fuel at all. I think that's totally the same. And during the race is the same as well for your fueling. But the hydration and electrolytes would change. You would increase that. I think now in the cooler weather, I know you guys have all been running, like you just don't need as much water. It's not a critical factor right now. But if you're sweating more profusely, you feel lousy if you don't have all that fluid in your body, and you can lose a lot of water very quickly. The more muscle mass you have, like men tend to have higher muscle mass, you will lose water at an even higher rate. So you can get dehydrated. If you lose more than 2% of your body weight, it'll affect your performance.
Thanks.
So does that help? Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah, more or less. Just wanted to see if there was any difference that you would recommend in
Water
for Sunday's race. Yeah.
Oh, for Sundays? No, I think you actually don't have to, like, everyone's different, but the hydration is not as much of a factor. I think it's staying warm beforehand and not getting too cold at the start. I'd fuel the exact same way, whatever you normally do. Also being cold, you might not feel, you might not feel like that you have to go to the bathroom until it's like right at that moment, because the way your bladder is in colder weather. So kind of just, you don't want to overdrink is what I'm saying either. Don't want to overdrink.
Thank you.
Anyone has any questions? You can also write it on via text or anything else. Or the chat. Yes, via the chat. And I was just checking to see if there were any other questions that were sent.
Another question that I've been getting a lot that I didn't see on here is GI issues. And so it doesn't seem like that's an issue for anyone. No, like GI issues during or before. If that is an issue, I usually recommend just white rice, like eating white rice for your breakfast, if you're someone who might have GI issues during the race. That's definitely something I've been talking to a lot of people about. I'm trying to think what else I've been talking about lately. I think the day before is more important than we think. If you have guests or you are busy or you're doing things the day before, like literally set your alarm to eat at the proper times, whatever you normally do. If you want to sleep in a little, that's fine. Just make sure you eat right away when you get up and keep your meal times around the same. So don't get distracted by having other people around or people are staying with you and you're going to race together. Stick with what works for you and just remember what that is. And I think, like, I've seen that happen before. Like, a lot of my athletes might travel and they panic because they're like, I don't know what to eat. I'm in a different situation, or I have guests and I couldn't ask them to leave. So, just kind of stick with the plan that works best for you. Many of you probably have start times like 7:20, 7:50, right? Those are at the very latest 7:50. So, that meal is going to be, if we walk back like 2 hours, 5 between 4 and 5 a.m. is a meal. And that's a meal that you have had before. You may want to add a little bit more. So if you normally do one piece of toast, like make it like 2 or 3. That's plenty of time for you to digest. And then a banana or maybe some other foods that you normally have. And then put in your bag that you're bringing with you extra snacks. And you could snack from 5 to 6. And then start tapering down the food. You don't need to eat anymore. And you can just munch on food. You don't have to force down a bag of pretzels or a bag of something. Just have it with you, a granola bar, and just eat bites of it. But you're not, as long as you get in that 5 to 6 or 4 to 5 a.m. meal and then a couple little bites of snacks, that's totally fine. And some of you might take a goo right before you start. That's fine too. If you're doing just a plain gel, have a sip of water with it. You don't want to put that in your stomach. What's my opinion on overnight oats as a pre-race meal? If you've done that before, then great. Then you can absolutely do that. That's a great one because it's easy and you just grab it out of your fridge. If you're trying to sleep a little longer, you could do that and just grab that and go as you're heading out to the race. I don't have a problem with that. What would I do differently with that food? Not as much peanut butter. Maybe you would make it with like a mix of milk and water. If you do chia seeds, I would not do chia seeds on that on race day. A little honey and banana. So I would mix it. I wouldn't do strawberries, nothing with fiber. If you normally do like some type of dried fruit, then that one would be fine. I would stay away from like eggs and toast or egg sandwich. Like that's kind of heavy. Mostly carbohydrates. You want to have as much carb as you can, but you don't want to like we were saying, like if you're 2 hours before, then you're at about, for 120, 130 pound person, that's like 100 grams.
Many of the runners are running, at least that I see here, they're going to be running also London. So that's international travel. Do you have to remind them some of your usual advice for those traveling overseas?
So for London and traveling, make a packing list. I actually made one for some friends who went to Berlin. I could send that to Coach if you'd like. But once it gets close to that race time or that race week, I don't know. I think most runners are just, you're trying to tie up your work. You're trying to do all these other things. You're not thinking anymore. The planning becomes very hard. So make a list of the things that you would need and do that like at a time like now where you can actually think clearly. I could send you my list. It's like got a ton of things on there. Bring your bars, put out your bars, your goos, your gels, whatever you need to be successful. And really, the things that are most critical, and I would put this in your carry-on, your shoes, your gels, and whatever you're racing in, and your passport. That's it. That's all you need to race. You could buy everything else if you need. And if they lose your luggage, it doesn't matter. You really just need your racing outfit, your shoes and socks, and your type of nutrition that you need. Everything else you could figure out. So just kind of, I would put that on your carry-on in case that gets lost. And what else? So when you're traveling to different time zones, hopefully you get at least a couple days there in advance. Be aggressive about hopefully you have a night flight, you sleep on the plane a little bit and you get up and you stay up that first day and it totally stinks. And you're in a daze. That's the worst. And then go to sleep early and you're totally adjusting.
I wish I could do it like that.
It's terrible. It's all
back home in France takes me 5 days. It's ridiculous.
It's so hard. There's really
it sounds so easy, but it's so hard to do.
It's so hard. I did that last year. It was so bad. I was like, I basically just lost a day of my life, and it's just, like you're just in a daze. So, however, I would just say for nutrition, set your times. You're not going to feel hungry the day before. So that's going to be your biggest challenge. You might even be nauseous because you're just so out of sorts. So keep eating. Could be breads, could be crackers, just whatever type of carb you can find. I would also research restaurants that are near your hotel just to have access, or a grocery store is always a great thing to do. One of my runners, he's vegan and he just ran Tokyo. He just ran Tokyo, and I literally looked up all the different foods near him and gave him all these ideas. Basically, he ate ramen and rice, and he did great. He ran really fast, but ramen and rice. I'm like, that's what you got to do. And miso, he had some miso soup for electrolytes. But I would just research the local area there. London's pretty good. They have a big variety of foods, but it's like the grocery store, and you don't want to be hunting down your food, and then you're walking all over the place trying to find it. So just kind of know where that is, bring as much as you can. Let's see what else I would say. Yeah, and your night before, like you're still going to eat your meal. Like I would just walk back the time. Like what is your norm? It's all about the time, not about how your body feels, because you're just going to be out of sorts. So whatever that night is, like try and eat a dinner at like between 6 and 8 o'clock. Don't eat too late. And then in the morning, wake up, at your proper time. I don't know what the race time starts. What's the start time there? Is it like 9 a.m. local? 7 a.m.?
Yeah, usually, yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
It doesn't even matter because you're so jet lagged. Right? Doesn't really. You might even be awake. Just don't move your legs around.
I have a question, Amy.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on simple carbs versus whole grains for runners?
So I think in general, whole grains have more nutrition. So like day to day, you want to have a lot of whole grains. Those are more nutritious. Things like white potato, sweet potato, quinoa, oats, like all of those foods have more nutrition. Whole grain breads have more vitamins and fiber. Those are great in general. But on race day or before a run, you go all simple.
Simple carbs, right? Okay.
More toxic, the easier it is for your body to digest. Like those Nutri-Grain bars, like that shelf life is like 10 years. So like that's not even food, but it is great for a pre-run type of food. So, and the other thing about the whole grains, it's a good question, is that, and this is another topic I've been talking about a lot, is pooping. So you want to poop on a regular schedule, because there is nothing worse than trying to go out for a run and you have not gone to the bathroom because you know it's coming. And you don't want to be out in the middle of wherever and having to go. So eating a high fiber diet will promote regularity, and it'll help you to go at the same time. And eating on a schedule will also help. Like your body gets used to eating breakfast, lunch, dinner at the same time, and then you'll go to the bathroom at the same time. So it's like, have you ever noticed if you travel somewhere that's totally different and you're eating totally different, like it's hard to go to the bathroom sometimes because it's just things are out of whack. So the more of a schedule you can keep and the high fiber, complex carbs, it'll help keep things moving through you. Yeah,
Okay,
no,
thank you. Yeah, thank you. Well, I actually consume more complex carbs than simple carbs, but I guess what you're saying is that it makes sense to consume more simple carbs closer to race day as opposed to complex carbs, right?
yeah, because you don't want to be so full the day before a race. You don't want to be having to go to the bathroom like a lot. Yeah, you want your bowels emptied.
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
Yeah, you don't want like a great big bean burrito the night before a race.
Definitely.
That's
No,
not that might not work out amazing.
definitely.
Yeah. And the bathrooms are not the most convenient. Like I think the ones I heard they're putting the bathrooms in the corrals for this next upcoming the half marathon. But the lines are so long. It's just it's like the last thing you want to worry about, but you just want to eliminate everything at your home and like just get out there and maybe go to the bathroom once. But get it out as much as you can. I know it's like, but that's normal. Like that, it can affect your time. Like, who wants to deal with that? If you're trying to hit a time, and if
Absolutely.
you're working with Coach Medina, you're not stopping.
Yeah, stop it.
That's for sure.
It's funny, I can
Absolutely.
believe that Amy knows that.
But I mean, it's a reputation.
It's a reputation. No pictures. God damn it.
No,
Thank
it's,
you for your
but I get
social
it. Right, nobody quote that, but like, yes, I would say that's definitely something like important. What else? The other thing that I've been hearing from runners is that they're nervous, like pre-race jitters, like, and that makes them go to the bathroom more. Like, find ways to deal with with your nervous energy. And it's most of the time, it's not the actual food that's causing the issue, because they start eliminating foods. Like, oh, I was talking to someone today and he's like, I was doing this really intense long run. I was really nervous and I ate oatmeal and I had terrible stomach ache. So I can't eat oatmeal anymore. And really, I said, well, how nervous are you? And he said, I was extremely nervous. It was a very intense run. I said, I don't think it was the oatmeal. Like, let's not cross that off your list just yet. I think let's reframe how you feel before that, and I mean, I gave him some quotes that I like, but that's up to the runner to talk to Coach Medina to find ways to reframe their nerves.
That's good.
Like
Appreciate- Yeah, that's good. I guess a lot of people do get jittery. I used to have that, especially when I was like under pressure in high school, and like the coach is a big race, and I remember, I get the jitters. Experience.
What worked for you? What helped you?
No, I didn't overcome it during college. I mean, during high school. But now to know, and even it just, I have it in my mind because more recently I was reading some of like Matt Fitzgerald's book, and it reminded me of these types of jitters and things like that, which does affect your performance, significant.
I find the jitters great. I mean, to the extent that you can control it. Great to use the bathroom in the morning. I mean, if it wasn't for the raised jitters, no way I could use the bathroom at 5 a.m. in the morning. I find it great.
And I do think the jitters are actually a good thing because it increases your adrenaline. It right, like there's within reason, because you get amped, like you need something to get you like pushed a little bit. So I think it's not bad. Billie Jean King had a great quote that I always liked, was to have pressure is a privilege.
Yeah. What I tell the athletes is, if you're not, if they're nervous and they tell me they're like, oh, I'm nervous and things like that, that means it means something to you. You wouldn't be nervous if you're not. It's because you didn't, you have nothing at stake. So if you have an athlete who didn't do any of their training and stuff, believe me, they're not nervous. Lose. And so when we step up, it's because we put in a lot of work, and so the stakes feel a little bit more higher, and so we feel, I guess, a little more, nervous. There's a question there. I don't know if you see it.
Can you read it to me? Because I don't know how to get it back.
What would you recommend for refueling strategy to not crash or drop pace dramatically in the last 10K of marathon?
Oh, great question. I like this one. So the best way to fuel for that last 10K is fueling early and often. So during a run or during a marathon, your body is constantly using up that glycogen. And as your body gets depleted on glycogen, it slows down and it increases your fatigue. So the way to preserve that is to take in like the goos and the gels. Don't wait until you feel tired to start your fueling. So if you're normally, it's usually, I think 30 to 50 grams is what I recommend. Yeah, 30 to 50. You can go higher if your body can tolerate it. So 30 to 50 grams, it's usually around 2 goos, depending on which ones you're using. So taking in 2, like you could have your breakfast and your pre-fueling, your pre-race strategy, and then start fueling at like 45 minutes or so. But again, that's why your pre-race strategy and your timing is so important. You don't want to eat so much close to the start, and then your belly is full and you can't even start your fueling.
What are the risks of overfueling? Let's say, I'm trying to get in more and more. And I know, I'm just like, if I take, let's say, too much gel, too much fueling really during the race, I can send you to the bathroom. Is that really the only thing that's going to happen, right?
You throw up. Yeah, so you don't want to throw up or have diarrhea. You don't want that because you're losing electrolytes.
No, I know I don't want that. I'm just I get
right.
So it's just like one of the risks of like overfueling, basically.
Yeah, the risk is just to having like vomiting. Like, it can also happen from taking in things that your body is not used to. So there's this whole concept of gut training where during a marathon cycle, as you train your body to run and sustain higher speeds, you're also training your gut, and you increase your gut receptors to take in those gels and goos. So if you increase your fueling while you're increasing your intensity of your training, those go hand in hand. And then on race day, you can implement the same plan. So I think that's ideal, because if you can get in more fuel, you can sustain higher speeds. So to prevent that crash, though, going back to that, is to keep fueling and not to stop. Don't fall off your plan. If you want to wait, like, or prolong it 5 or 10 minutes, because for whatever reason you don't feel like taking it and you need a little break, that's fine. But don't wait much longer. So, again, your body probably has, I'd say, like around 200 grams of carbohydrate in your liver, or glycogen in your liver, and then maybe 300 in your muscles. Your body will use the muscle glycogen first, then it goes to the liver. And once your liver is getting empty, your body will experience more fatigue and tell you to slow down. And then at some point, if you don't slow down, you might hit the wall, and then you have to walk.
So that
Yeah.
happened to me this past Sunday. I thought I had 3 gels, but I only had 2, and I was dead because I felt empty. And so, like, the thing is, like, I haven't really found like the sweet spot in terms of like what is enough. Like, I did 2 Martin gels, and they're great when I do them, but I was like, at what point do I take the 3rd one? Because I did a 20-miler on Sunday. So I'm still trying to like find out like what's the right amount for me.
Oh, so you definitely needed the 3rd one.
Yeah.
So you needed to start earlier, maybe 45 minutes, and then an hour 30, and then like 2:15.
Okay.
Something like that, around there.
Okay. All right.
And even if you're going to go those last 2 miles, I mean, sometimes, I don't know how your training plans are. Sometimes those are the hardest miles because you're pushing the hardest. So you might want to take a gel for that.
Yeah.
Even if 2 miles, just to practice. If you don't have enough and you're out, I mean, I guess you guys run in Central Park most of the time. It's hard to go and find food, but if you did have to, because I've forgotten my stuff before, try and carry money on you, like $5, put it in like your pocket on your pants all the time. Nutri-Grain bars, apple juice, like those are things you can get at a deli. The fruit leathers, like any one of those fruit leather sticks, those are great to grab if you don't have your gels or need an extra boost of sugar. Those are quick sources.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely like, it was just like, I felt empty. I could have used another gel for sure. I just was struggling on like, when do I take that 3rd gel? Like in the past, like I've struggled with that.
So stay with the same timing. Keep your timing the same. The increments.
I think I've moved my timing back, so it's closer to that, what you just said, but still not quite enough. So now that I have this to work with, I'll try it on my next 20-miler. So
Yeah, and make it scientific. Like, have a plan and stick with it. Like, this is the only time, and I was just telling one of my milers, Eric, who's trying, he's so fast. He's trying to go, he's a 3:56 miler, and he's trying to PR that. So be rigid on your day before and your race day. That is the only time I would ever tell someone to be rigid with their eating and their fueling. Be rigid, have a plan, write out your plan that works for you and stick to that exact plan.
Yeah.
The variations are going to, your body works the same way every time. It becomes predictable then. You know how you're going to feel. And then you have confidence and you're not thinking about, am I going to crash at that 10K? So it's almost like for that 10K also, the last 10K, fuel up for the 10K. Like you're about to run a 10K. That gel should be at mile 19.
Okay.
There definitely needs to be fueling close to that point. And that's when you're pushing the hardest and feeling the worst. So you want to have that gel in your body and ready. So when you mentally are like, oh man, last 10K, you can push through it. You don't have to think about the food.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Hopefully that's helpful. That there's so many ways to approach this, but like I find, making it like for you guys and at your level, like you're not jogging this. You're being competitive and you have time goals. So we need to be more rigid with the way we're eating and fueling. just those days, those 2 days before, the day before and the morning of.
Okay.
And the other
Good.
thing about traveling internationally, again, write that one out, write out your plan and try and stick to it the best that you can. First day is going to stink, just kind of get through it. But then the next day is a fueling day. How much can you get in?
Okay.
Without obviously making yourself sick, but like, what do you normally do, and try and get close to that.
Amy, I know you and I spoke about using salt tablets when cramps begin to occur. Could you just like shed some light to on how to use the best way to use salt tablets in a marathon?
Yeah, so it's actually before the cramps occur is when you want to start using those. So electrolytes are great. So cramps, leg cramps are not like the studies don't always point to like it being an electrolyte imbalance, but there are studies that show it's like it increases your risk. So if your electrolytes are off, it could increase your risk. So I would say start taking it before the race. Like you can just even use those on your meal, like sprinkle salt on your pre-race meal. That's a great way to get in salt. And then during, you can either use salt tablets or have salted gels, salt sticks, like anything like that would be great. And I would say like around like 200 to 400 milligrams per hour is what you're targeting. Martin gels do not have sodium. I think they have like 30 or something. So
Right.
that's hitting the targets. Now, if you're someone who's had muscle cramps or if you're fearful of them, like then you want to do that 200 to 400 per hour. But if it's never happened to you, like maybe you can get away with like one salt product like during your race. It's amazing. Some people don't need it. And some people need a massive amount. I think if you're a coffee drinker, these are my theories.
Yeah.
I have no scientific data on any of this, but if you're a coffee drinker, I think coffee excretes sodium. So you might need a little salt. That might be a reason.
That makes sense.
Right. So that's one possibility. And the other is if you eat really well and you're cooking all your meals at home, you're getting less sodium. So then you might have to add. That might be another candidate or someone who might need to add. If you are like a vegetarian or vegan, like you're not eating, like meats are where like a lot of the salt is, or eating out is where you get a lot of salt. I mean,
Yeah.
you can get a day's worth of salt in a Chipotle burrito. So, but if you make it at home, like I don't use salt when I cook, so I have to add it when I run.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I actually check all those boxes. I drink coffee. I make my own meals. So I definitely need some more salts. That's for sure.
Yeah, just during your runs, like you don't need to have a high salt diet all the time, but like when you're running. And my fast runner, he just did like a 2:11 at Tokyo, he's a vegan and he gets muscle cramps. And that's why I was telling him he's got to drink the miso soup, like make sure you're getting your salt in other ways in this other country. And he didn't have a muscle cramp, by the way.
Okay, good to know. Okay, all right, thanks.
Sure. And the other thing, one other thing I think is interesting about muscle cramps, it's not always just your legs. It can happen in any muscle in your body. It could be in your stomach. It could be anywhere. Could be a calf. It could be, a quad. It could be anywhere. So Stan asked, any alternating, I keep losing it.
Does any
can you-
alternate refueling source other than gels or chews that are also quick to digest? Gels trigger nausea for me with empty stomach sometimes.
I see it.
So true.
Okay, I see it. Okay, so I would say, and I've been asked the question before, what about using like natural, like things that are made with honey or maple syrup? So the Honey Stinger brand or even honey sticks can be helpful during a run that get digested a little bit better. What was the other one? That maple syrup was Untapped is another brand that
Human
has-
gel is also, no, not the human. Which one is the one they used to do?
Puma. Puma is
I forgot.
Good. I have stomach issues. I have GI issues, and sometimes gels make me nauseous, and I do Huma and they don't make me nauseous. And there's
So
some that have electrolytes included in it, but you have to be careful because they sell the ones that have like double the electrolytes, and that made me go to the bathroom. So
There you go. Awesome.
uh,
So that's a great brand. And what is that one?
Muir.
Weird. This one is sweet potato oregano. I mean, they really have some weird flavors, but they're all natural.
So Stan, I think that was a good question. And like, if anyone else has that issue, like using more natural foods and more natural sources can be very beneficial. And hopefully that helps. The other thing is make sure you're hydrated. A lot of the nausea and GI issues are caused by being poorly hydrated. So make sure that that's not an issue. And you can also do the like the scratched little chews and just take like 1 or 2 at a time, like spread it out over a longer period. Don't do like the recommended amount at once. That might be too much on your body. So those are just some other ideas. So are there other questions? You guys excited?
I'm definitely excited for
I am.
all of them. And I hope that everyone is excited too. We only have 2
definitely.
weeks to go, and if anyone has any other questions, we'll definitely be sending them your way.
Absolutely. And so I'm running like every New York race. So I'll be at New York City half, then I'll do Boston, and then I'm going to do Brooklyn half if I have enough energy.
Sounds great.
Sounds great. So I guess
Sure you
see
will.
you around.
We'll see you around. Yeah, have everyone. I hope you included. Then have a great race this weekend at the New York City half. Hopefully we make it. We get a storm here tomorrow, so hopefully we make past that and then see you guys on Wednesday. Hopefully the roads will be fine, but yeah.
Mhm.
And then Sunday looks chilly, but it's gonna be a fine day. It's supposed to be sunny, right? It's supposed to be sunny. At least?
Yeah, goodness.
Yeah, it's supposed to be cold and sunny, which is good.
Well, not sunny. Yeah, I mean it could be a lot worse. So when you have the sun out, it tends to make it a lot more bearable.
Yeah, for me, the colder the better. The colder the better.
Oh, wow.
So we appreciate
All right, well,
your time, Amy,
Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much.
and thank everyone for joining us. We'll share the
Thank you.
video if and anything you can share with us. We'll forward it to our athletes as well. And always feel free to reach out to Amy either via her Instagram or her email. She's very accessible and responsive.
Thank you so much, Amy, for your time.
Bye, guys.
guys.
See you guys.
Much. Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye, guys.